Okay, so in the last video we looked at function scopes. We saw what a global and a local variable is. In this video we'll be looking at default arguments. So function default parameters in general. To explain this, I'll be defining a function. Let's call this create human. Alright, so uh, this function, let's say what we want to do is pass in parameters that create something like a human being. And generally, let's say a human being should have, by default, should have, let's say, hands, legs, and then let's say okay, let's say optionally, so let's say eyes. Okay, let's just leave it so far. Let's leave it hands and legs. Say that's what a human has. So in this case, we are going to just basically print out. Okay, let's say every human has a name also. So let's pass in a name. So let's do this. Let's say print. Let's use a string and say my name is this, and then I have this hands and this legs. Okay, let's pass in the values. My name is name, and then I have hands and then legs. Alright, so let's just run this and see. I want to really introduce something interesting, but let's run this first and see. So let's say create human name hands legs, right? These are the argument that it takes. So let's specify this. Maybe we could specify them here. Let's say name is equals to hands equals to 2 legs equals to 3. No, let's leave it as 2 for now. So let's run this. Okay, see, my name is Tahir and I have 2 hands and 2 what? Okay, and 2 legs, right? 2 legs, right? Okay, let's run this again. Okay, my name is Tahir and I have 2 hands and 2 legs. Okay, but you know that by default a normal human being should have eyes, right? So let's say we know that by default a human should have eyes, so and should have 2 eyes. So instead of having to always pass those 2 eyes, since we know that always a human should have that, we could do something like this. We could say eyes is equals to 2, for example. So what we're saying here is that whenever this function is being called, there's a default parameter called eyes, which is 2, and then this parameter will always be passed regardless of whether the user passed this in or not. So now this eyes parameter here is optional, meaning even if you don't pass it when calling the function, it will be available and no error is going to be raised. So let's try running the function the same without passing it and let's see what happens. Alright, so we see the function still works fine even though we didn't provide the eye parameter, because it's already defined here. We're saying that the function has a default parameter of eyes, which is 2. So we could still reference it. Let's see. We could say, and I have um, eyes. Okay. So let's run this and see what happens. Control B. Okay, my name is there, and I have 2 hands, 2 legs, and I have 2 eyes. Okay. Alright, so you see the default parameter of I is passed by default without having to actually pass it in. So this can be very useful whenever a function that you're defining has some values that are by default available, and then you do not always have to pass it in. So you could just define the default parameter and then use it. But now imagine a situation whereby you want to create, let's say, a blind human, and you still want to keep this function this way. That is, for normal humans, they will have eyes, but then when you want to create a human that doesn't have eye, then all you need to do is now pass in a new value. Let's say eyes is equals to 0. So now when you do this, this I equals to 0 that you pass in when calling the function create human overwrites the default parameter, and then therefore allow for a human that has no eyes. So let's run this and see. Control S, Control B. Alright, so you see this human have 0 eyes. Or let's say you want to pass in 1. Control S, Control B. Okay, so this human has just 1 eye, but all other parameters that you pass in are available. So the default parameter is optional whenever you actually define it in the when you're creating the function. So you see we could completely remove it and then it still works fine. Control S, Control B, it works fine because we've already given it a value here. And this default parameter could be anything. It could be a string, it could be an integer, it could be true, it could be false, it could be none, it could be whatever it is that you want it to be. So the most important thing is that you utilize it when you want to pass in some default properties of for an object or a function, and you could use that when you want to go with the default properties of the object, or then you could overwrite it by passing in your own values when you want to pass a custom behavior for the function. And this is super important, like really important, because you're going to have to use it a lot when you're defining functions, or when we get to object-oriented programming, when you're defining methods. So I think this brings us to the end of the video. See you in the next part. Thank you for